on everyone, my name's Andy, welcome back to another FPL video, and today it's team selection preview series for Game Week 25, so as always, going to take you back through how my team did last week in Game Week 24. The Game Week's not over yet, as you'll know, the second Liverpool game hasn't been played yet, but I can still tell you how I'm doing and how I'm looking for next week as well, so going through Game Week 25, any potential transfers, players that I'm thinking about taking out and captaincy, that kind of normal thing. The video has kindly been sponsored once again by OneFootball, so if you haven't already checked it out, make sure you do. Link in the description below will take you straight through to it, or you can just search OneFootball on Android and iOS stores. It'll work on Android, iOS devices, live scores, team news, football news, and all that normal stuff that you need as an FPL manager. So make sure to check it out if you haven't already. Otherwise, let's jump into this one. So let's talk about Game Week 24, and as you can see, it's gone pretty awful so far. Like I said, it's not completely over yet. But I'm not expecting that red arrow to turn into anything green, especially when, if Mane doesn't play and Salah does. Lots of people with Salah captain, triple captain, and that's really going to hurt because I'm expecting him to start and do well against West Ham. So, it couldn't have gone any worse. I'm on 32. I took a 4-point hit, and obviously not all out yet. Trent and Robertson could come in with a double clean sheet, but at this point I'm going to be struggling to push 50 points, which is absolutely awful when you consider I have my triple captainship activated on Mane. Couldn't have gone much worse. Obviously, I went up a few green arrows in recent weeks, then went down a little bit last week, and now even further now, down to 775k. This season, honestly, it's just been a disaster, and I can't even sit here and say it's all been bad luck. There's some bad decision-making along the way. And to be honest, I think, if I'm completely honest about it, I think I'm probably struggling a little bit to kind of make decisions that I'm happy with. I'm probably making hasty decisions I wouldn't normally do if I was doing well. And probably because I'm second-guessing myself a lot of the time. As an example, on stream, said that Traore, okay, fair enough, he's got tough fixtures coming up, but he's cheap, he's an enabler. He's got good fixtures coming up after the next kind of 3 after the Liverpool game and the 2 after that. His points per game for the last 7 was over 5, which is really good for his price. And yet I still sold him for a hit for Grealish because I think that move was kind of fear of missing out. Grealish had slightly better fixtures in the very short term. But Traore's got probably better, longer-term fixtures, cheaper price. He was so good against Liverpool as well. It was really hard to watch that match after selling him. So sold him for a hit. I bought Robertson in. Choice between Kelly and Rico of who to get out. Now, I chose Kelly because I thought defensively Crystal Palace were probably going to be looking better in recent or in the coming weeks rather than Bournemouth. And obviously Bournemouth did pretty well in that game against Brighton. And Rico could have scored. He got an assist. He got 5 points. Ended up scoring more than Kelly, Ings and Lundstram put together. So again, another mistake, although I wouldn't necessarily say that was a bad decision, but I think taking a hit for Traore to Grealish, obviously a little bit of hindsight that Grealish didn't do anything against Watford, but I just don't think longer term that was a move I needed to make. I could have just held on to Traore. He'd done pretty well for me. Obviously had that big haul the week before, and we've seen Wolves step up time and time again against opposition like that, and Robertson had a bit of trouble containing Traore. He's just so fast, it's absolutely ridiculous. So I do think this season is kind of getting worse and worse. I'm not sure how much I can turn it around at this point. I think top 10k is out of the question. I think at this point I'm going to have to be looking something like top 100k, maybe 50k if I get really lucky over the next few weeks. But I've got to stop guessing myself, listen to what I'm saying, and then acting upon it. I think that's where it's going wrong. Elsewhere, obviously Mane got injured. I can't beat myself up about that. That's just super unlucky. I had to laugh it off. I mean, going off in the first half of the first game of a double game week as your triple captain, there's just not much you can do about that. And it doesn't sound like he's probably going to be back for West Ham. We don't exactly know how long he's going to be out for. But I wouldn't expect them to risk him. Obviously, the Southampton game is not too long after that West Ham game either. So all in all, it's looking pretty bad. McCarthy came in with 6 points. De Bruyne came in with 7. I mean, he's been ticking over all season. Nothing for Vardy. Obviously, he went off injured as well. Morpay could have had a couple of goals against Bournemouth. That never came off. He's now looking like a pretty bad buy as well. So there's work to be done with this team. Game Week 24 was not quite what I hoped. I knew that I wouldn't necessarily get a massive green arrow because a lot of people would have had triple Liverpool and triple captainships in play, but certainly wasn't expecting a red arrow. So let's have a look how we're looking for Game Week 25. There's just the one free transfer to use this week, 101.8 million squad value and 1.8 million in the bank. So after kind of even doing Robertson in for Rico and Traore to Grealish, I've still got quite a bit of money in the bank to play with. Because obviously I have gone for the double defence rather than the double attack route, which right now doesn't look great. But fingers crossed they can get something against West Ham, like I said. And I think going forward, Liverpool defenders, I'm pretty happy with. I'm still happy that I made that decision not to go for the double attack. I don't think long term that's a move I would still make now. Would I switch Mane to Salah? Potentially, but in terms of double defence, Trent and Robertson still looking good. Now, Southampton could be quite tricky. Obviously, Danny Ings has been in great goal scoring form, hasn't scored in the last couple, but they're probably going to test Liverpool a bit, I think. I don't think that's going to be an easy game, but they've been so good defensively that I'm not too worried about that. And I think going forward, having these two in my defence, because I'm playing a 3 at the back formation, it's kind of 2 slots I just do not have to worry about week in, week out, unless they get injured. I think defensively they've been so good recently. They didn't keep a clean sheet against Wolves, which is unfortunate, but they've definitely got the fixtures going forward. And I think a lot of people that own Danny Ings are probably looking at benching him this week because they're so sure that Liverpool are going to get a clean sheet. So really happy with that. Obviously, McCarthy's a tough one because he's playing Liverpool and I expect them to score. So I'm not expecting a clean sheet. He got one last week, didn't get anything the week before. So that would be 2 non-returns out of 3 games, but he was in because I needed a goalkeeper. He's very cheap, and obviously going forward, Southampton's fixtures are really good as well. So obviously he stays, he's going nowhere unless he loses his place or gets injured. Lundstram is potentially going to be an issue now. So he's missed the last 2 games, hasn't started the last 2 games, and in the cup, Besic did score as well. So he's the player that's kind of coming to replace him. So it's very difficult to tell right now whether he's lost his place completely or whether he'll get back in. Maybe it was a bit of a rest he needed. Obviously, he's played a lot of minutes this year. And Wilder doesn't tend to change his team around too much in that midfield unless he absolutely has to. So whether or not Besic will just keep playing week in, week out now, I don't know. So I don't think there's a need to obviously get rid of Lundstram. I got him for 5 million-ish, so it's a bit different for me. If I do need to get rid of him, I've got no problem doing that. If you got him for 4 million, then he's an easy keep. You wait and see if he plays the next game. If he doesn't, he just props up your bench maybe, and you keep reaping the rewards of getting him for 4 million and having so much more money to spend elsewhere. But for me, it's a different story because he, if he has lost his place and he cost me 5 million, I would definitely be looking to ship him on, maybe even to one of his Sheffield United counterparts in defence who actually play in defence but still get forward because they have got good fixtures coming up and I don't have Henderson in goals. So I'll keep him for this week and hope he plays. I've got Kelly on the bench playing Sheffield United, of course. Soyuncu's got a tough enough fixture. I don't really want to play Dendoncker, but if Kelly has to come off the bench and hopefully he plays again this week, then that's okay. And if it has to be Soyuncu against Chelsea, then so be it. I don't want to kind of make a transfer in defence just yet because if Lundstram does get his place straight back and obviously he's just been rested, not dropped, then he's going to be a great option going forward anyway. So these are kind of my 3 starters in defence going forward. I may have issues this week, like I said. If Kelly loses his place, Lundstram doesn't get back in, then I'm going to be playing Soyuncu against Chelsea at home. But I'd rather do that and wait and see than burn a transfer that I might not have to on the defence. So in midfield, let's start with Mane. He's currently listed as my captain. Obviously, that depends a lot on whether he's definitely going to be fit to start. I'm going to have to see what Klopp says in kind of press conferences and stuff. We don't really have much info at the time we're recording this, and obviously this is going to go out on Tuesday. Maybe there'll be some info tomorrow potentially, but right now we don't have too much info on kind of whether he's going to start against Southampton, whether he might start against West Ham. Obviously, if he starts against West Ham, then it makes it a very easy keep because you'd expect him then to play against Southampton as well. The key for Liverpool this year is obviously getting the league, which they're going to win anyway, but I think they're going to want to wrap it up as soon as possible, then maybe start concentrating on Champions League if they can. So Mane is a potential issue for me. If he's out for the Southampton game and it's just one game, I actually don't think I'm going to stick with him because I just don't think my team can cope with it. Like I've already said, Kelly might miss out. Soyuncu's playing Chelsea. I might need him anyway. And Dendonker's not really a good replacement. People have got more expensive options as their 5th midfielder like Cantwell or someone like that. It might be a little bit more interesting to play him. But Dendoncker I wouldn't necessarily expect much to week from week. So if Mane is missing the Southampton game, I'm probably just going to cut my losses and bring Salah straight in. I want a Liverpool captain over these coming game weeks, kind of the next 4 or 5. And if it can't be Mane, I'll happily move to Salah. I think he looked okay against Wolves. I think we're probably going to see a much better side of him against West Ham, and obviously he's going to keep starting going forward on penalties when Milner's out as well. And they don't necessarily get too many, but when they do get them, that's going to be an easy way to bulk up his score. So Mane stays, and he's going to be my captain if he's fit. But if I'm in any way unsure about whether he's going to play, if Klopp's not sure whether he can start against Southampton, if he says it's going to be too soon, then I probably just will make the switch to Salah. I've got the money in the bank. Why not just get it done? I want a Liverpool captain. What better choice than going for Salah if Mane is out? In terms of Maddison, he's maybe been a little bit unlucky not to get more points in recent weeks. Got that goal against Newcastle kind of 4 game weeks ago now. Nothing since. And he's going to be a frustrating one to hold through this period of fixtures. So they got Chelsea at home, Wolves away, and Man City at home. So not necessarily expecting a huge amount, but I'm not really sure where I'm going to switch to here. I don't really want to go back to Traore because I only just got rid of him. I might as well ride out the next couple of fixtures before I look at bringing him back. And after the next 3 for Leicester anyway, they're pretty good, after the Man City game. So potentially I could hold on to him, but he might, like Jamie Vardy obviously, be blanking in game week 28 depending on how the replay goes against Aston Villa in the Carabao Cup. So if he's going to miss that game as well, so if he's going to have 3 tough fixtures and miss out, then I might ship him. The problem is I don't know right now exactly who I'll be looking at going for. Martial potentially, but Man United not looking great, and obviously Rashford's out, Pogba's out, McTominay's out. It's really not looking good for them. So let's see if any transfers come in January. Traore obviously would be one that I'd look at. Trossard maybe at Brighton, but then he's missed out again, so he's not very reliable. So around that kind of price point, Lucas Moura is another one. I'm not sure if I can trust him to get many points at the moment. So at this point, because there's not a huge amount of players that I want to go for, I can't afford to go for Salah, I can't afford to go double Liverpool attack, and obviously I can't do that anyway because I've got the defence. There's not a huge amount of players I want to bring in around that price point. I could move to a 4-3-3 potentially, but that's a lot of kind of moving around my squad. So I think Maddison's basically going to stay by default at the moment. I don't think Chelsea at home is necessarily the worst fixture to have him for anyway, and I've probably got bigger priorities elsewhere, so he's probably going to stay for me. Grealish has just come in. Like I said, it was a bit of fear of missing out. He felt like he was going to score every single week, always involved when Aston Villa do anything. Not necessarily expecting them to score a ton of goals in these games, but expecting them to score. And they did against Watford, but obviously 2 goals, he wasn't involved. I think Bournemouth a better game, but Bournemouth did look a bit better against Brighton, so maybe that's a little bit of a resurgence for them. Obviously, it's going to be difficult to tell, but this is an away game, so you'd expect Aston Villa to maybe struggle a little bit more, but happy enough to play him. And if I have to get rid of him longer term, then I might. But I think for now, just got him in, of course. The fixtures aren't awful, so I think I'll definitely be keeping him for the time being and hoping he can get involved if Aston Villa are going to score. And then De Bruyne, I think he has to stay. I talked about him a while ago about maybe getting rid for double Liverpool attack potentially. But he's been so consistent over the whole season. He continues to be, I think, with Aguero in the team as well. That really helps him out too. 7 points in the last game. I don't think Spurs are that good defensively, although Lloris is back now, which is probably going to help a little bit. But even against Norwich, they weren't that good recently when they played them. And Man City are going to give them much more to think about for sure. So expecting more De Bruyne involvement. I think I watched the Spurs Man City game earlier in the season when they played, and they absolutely destroyed them. And this is back when Pochettino was managing. Maybe Mourinho will be a bit more defensively sharp against Man City, but I just don't think they're going to have enough to contain them. So happy with him long term. Overall midfield, look, Grealish came in on a bit of fear of missing out. I don't think I can get rid of him. Maddison, yeah, sure, I don't want him necessarily for the kind of longer term, but there's just not too many options that I'm kind of seeing in midfield. It's really strikers, but there's a lot of options, and obviously I'm happy with my defence. Midfield, not so much, but let's see what happens this week. Talking about mistakes with transfers, Morpay has not been good for the 2 games I've had him for. I think the fixtures are still okay for Brighton. The annoying thing is, the one reason I bought him in was because they played Aston Villa and Bournemouth, who at the time were really poor defences. They were conceding a lot of shots. And he's got no points against them. Well, he got the assist, I suppose, against Aston Villa, but you really want goals to then top up the bonus points and stuff. And he hasn't got any against either of those 2 teams. Was a bit unlucky, I think, against Bournemouth not to get more. If you've seen the highlights for that or even watched the full match, there was that great save by Ramsdale. The second save as well was pretty good, but to be fair, it kind of was right at him, so not necessarily taking that as should have had 2 goals, but probably unlucky not to have at least 1 in the last game. May have got some bonus points. And obviously he is on penalty, so at some point if Brighton do get a penalty again, like I always say, it's sometimes an easy way for players to top up their points. I think because he's got West Ham away, I have to keep him for that. West Ham have got quite a few injuries. They're not exactly... I mean, at this point, it looks like they could even get relegated this season if they don't turn it around quickly under Moyes. So he's going to have to think of something there. But I think I have to keep him for this game. There are lots of cheap striker options, though. Chris Wood looks pretty good. His underlying stats are decent. He's scoring goals, got pretty good fixtures as well. Not as good as Brighton, maybe, but they're still not awful at all. Obviously, Deeney's doing well as well. And Calvert-Lewin, who's probably the one I should have gone for when I bought Morpay in. But their fixtures are only good in the short term, and then they get pretty awful. They play like 6 out of 7 fixtures against pretty much top 6 teams, so I'm not really sure about going for him right now. But there are lots of options up front, which is why I like these cheap striker spots, and I think Morpay is going to get at least another week out of me. And same with Danny Ings. Now, I could bench him. I know a lot of people like to bench their players when they're playing their defenders, especially double defence, but I'm kind of hedging my bets, I suppose. If Southampton do score, I should say, then hopefully Ings will be involved. You usually expect that. It doesn't always happen. Obviously, when they scored 2 against Wolves, for example, He wasn't involved at all and then got rested in the last game. But I think against Liverpool, if he does score, so be it. My double clean sheet goes, but I get the points from him instead. And honestly, my bench just cannot cope with benching Danny Ings. I just don't think it's really got the strength where I want to play one of my defenders instead. If I had maybe double Sheffield United defence or one of my Sheffield United defenders on the bench, I might play them instead. But Ings definitely plays. Now, Jamie Vardy. Now, this is potentially one of my transfers this week. He's not looked good recently and hasn't scored many points, although there is a bit of a kind of reason for that. So, he played against Liverpool, got nothing, fair enough. Injured for 2 games then, got an assist against Southampton, nothing versus Burnley, and then obviously got injured in the last game. So he's kind of missed 2, missed half of another, got an assist against Southampton, nothing against Burnley or Liverpool. So it's not an awful kind of record, and we know how good he was earlier in the season. But like I said for Maddison, he obviously has the same fixtures. Chelsea at home, which I think is okay. Wolves away, which is going to be tough. I don't think there's a huge amount of goals in that one. Although, again, a bit like Southampton, I suppose, and Ings, if they do score, you'd expect Vardy to be involved. And he did miss a penalty against Burnley. You wouldn't usually expect him to do that. He's got a pretty good record when it comes to penalties. So, on another day, he scores that, and we're not really worried about him at all. But I'm kind of looking at those fixtures, Wolves away, Man City at home, and a potential blank in Gameweek 28 if they win that game against Villa, and wondering if I could go somewhere else. Now, Aubameyang's one that's kind of come up a bit, and I have the money to go to him and still make the Mane to Salah move if I need to. And the fixtures are better, but I wouldn't say they're amazing. They're not kind of Bournemouth and Norwich at home, and then another kind of easy-ish tie away. It's Burnley away, Newcastle at home, Everton at home. So I wouldn't necessarily expect a huge amount of goals, but he's going to be fully fit. He's going to have a lot of rest since he's been suspended. And you'd imagine he's going to come back into that team. He hasn't really missed a game all season in the league apart from through the suspension. I think he's got 17 attacking returns in 22 games as well. So definitely one I've got my eye on. And I might just make that swap because at this point, it feels like everything I do is going wrong. And maybe that's not the right way to make a decision. And to be honest, that's not usually the way I would make my decision. But I just think I'm looking at those fixtures. Vardy's maybe in a little bit, kind of a little bit out of form. Although, like I said, there is a bit of a reason for that given the fixtures they've had. And Leicester in general not look great. But indeed he is back, or he was back on the bench and did play some part in the last game. So that might help them potentially. And he could do well against Chelsea. So I think if you're thinking of selling Vardy, what I would say is he's not an absolute must-sell by any means. I think he can get something against Chelsea. If they can get points against Wolves and Man City, then obviously he could be involved there as well. But Aubameyang, I do prefer the fixtures. His record this year, scoring goals and getting assists, has been brilliant. Something a bit different. He's lesser owned. The only thing is I'm going to spend more money on upgrading Vardy for a player that I'm not even going to captain because I'm going to captain a Liverpool player. And if Mane is out, then I want to do the Mane to Salah move. And then it's a hit for Vardy to Aubameyang, and suddenly it doesn't feel so appealing. And at this point, because everything's kind of gone wrong recently, it may be just time to sit back, relax, don't make any moves apart from Mane to Salah if I need to, and just see what happens. And maybe reassess next week with 2 free transfers, a bit of fresh perspective. Because like I said, Vardy does not need to go. I don't think he's a must-sell by any means. Indeed, he backs good. And he can definitely get something against Chelsea. So that's the team. I may do Vardy to Aubameyang. I'll definitely do Mane to Salah if Mane is out. And that's it for Game Week 25. That's it for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to give it a like. Much appreciated as always. And subscribe if you're new around here. Hit that notification bell. I know this is coming out before the game week's finished, but obviously if I wait until the game week's completely over to put these videos out, there'll be no time to kind of record and watch them. So hopefully that's not too bad. I don't think much is going to happen, although I said this last time, in the Liverpool game to make me change my mind. But obviously if someone like Trent or Robertson got injured, I'd have to bring someone else in. I may even look at going for the double Sheffield United double up in defence if something like that happened. And obviously, if, like I said, if Mane's not back for Southampton, then Salah can come in. I think that's a pretty easy move. Let me know in the comments below. What do you think I should do with this team? Is Maddison more of a priority out? How big of a mistake was Traore? That kind of thing. And if you haven't checked out OneFootball, link in the description below, or just search OneFootball on Android, iOS stores. And I'll catch you tomorrow for the preview. Cheers all.